Last night, Ashwin Ilian told me that he was a philosopher. He's a philosopher. What I didn't know, and you're about to find out, is that he's a refugee who's had a pretty dramatic story. I mean, frankly, somebody should make a movie about this guy. And he was marked for death by the regime in Iran. He fled by camelback. How often do you get to say that in an introduction? To Afghanistan, where he studied medicine, met his wife. And then as the government there shifted, he had to find another place of refuge. And he came to the Netherlands with the help of the United Nations. Studied law and a number of other subjects, including philosophy, at the University of Tilburg, where he's now has earned his Ph.D. and is a member of the faculty of law there. So he's a law professor, but unlike most law professors, he can argue and reason in an entertaining fashion. And I think you'll learn a lot from what he has to say.
You don't believe that I am for the first time in the United States. Old revolutionary young man, many years ago. You have seen these people. You have seen children in the 70s, in the 90s and 70s. They scared dead to America, marked by America. And it is an honor to be here in the United States of America. Political Islam and its inherent link to totalitarianism. Okay. So
I can't hear you in the back.
Okay. 9 theses on the relationship between religion and politics. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank you for being here. It's my pleasure and privilege to have been invited to this conference. I would like to thank Banafshe Zand Bonazi for making it possible. For making it possible for me to speak to you all at this unique conference. First, there was a unity between the profane and the sacred in the time of antiquity. In antiquity, the boundaries of the divine and the political were the same, because each religion was tied to the laws of its own state. There were no missionaries, only conquerors. The gods had to fight for their floors. Antiquity, with her German barbarians, truly had a more interesting outlook on the gods than we do in present-day society. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the French philosopher, was right when he wrote that people didn't fight on behalf of their gods. On the contrary, the gods fought for the people the same way Homer did. The Romans even had the habit of including the gods of the people they conquered into their own religion. Pre-Islamic Arabs had and knew multiplied gods. They lived in harmony with their gods. The Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic period, or ignorance, was a society in which people were tolerant of other gods. They didn't attack other states. The pre-Islamic Arabs were unjustly seen as barbarians. That this is partly proven by the fact that they didn't engage in religious warfare. Second, Christ brought about the division between church and state, the difference between the sacred and the profane. The basis for secular thinking can be found in Luke 20, 21, 26. Show me a denary. Whose likeness and inscription does it have? They said, Caesar's. He said to them, then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God things that are God's. This is the starting point from the point of view of political philosophy and from the point of view of legal philosophy. Is the starting point for all the split vision on the world. It lays the foundation for the Augustinian teaching of the necessary distinction between civitas Dei and civitas terrena, religion and politics. It goes without saying that we should keep in mind that there is an important differences between the Christian history, which is very violent, and the Christ and his teaching. 3. The battle between medieval Christian states and the sacred vision of the world. In his book, The King Two Bodies, which is about the political theology of the Middle Ages, Ernst Kantorowicz shows us that the medieval world had a coherent political theological theory. The persona ficta of the ruler represented a corporation soul, because the crown was seen as a corporation, the mortal body of the king conjoined with his immortal body. They also distinguish between the sacred corpus mysticum and the profane secular sacrum imperium. Kantorowicz speaks of the so-called secularization of the medieval church. It's very interesting that Erik Peterson, very important German thinker, has wrote during the Nazi regime about the relationship between Christianity and politics, about the end of the relationship. He wrote, the teachings of the divine monarchy fail because of the dogma of the Trinity, and the interpretation of the Pax Augusta, separation between the two worlds, was bound to fail because of Christian eschatology. Therefore, theologically, not only does monotheism as a political problem becomes, monotheism is a political problem. The Christian faith had been liberated from the connection with the Imperium Romanum. 4. Islam and politics have a deep-rooted connection. Which prophet can prevail over dualism and successfully incorporate monotheism into politics? In Jean-Jacques Rousseau, again, Social Contract, we find an answer to the question. He wrote, Muhammad held very sane views and linked his political system well together. And as long as the form of his government continued under the caliphs who succeeded him, the government was indeed one. And so far, good. But the Arabs, having grown prosperous, lettered, civilized, slack, and courtly, were conquered by barbarians. The division between the two powers began again, and although it is less apparent among the Muslims. Rousseau is right when he states that Muhammad reinstated monotheism. Muhammad, the life of the Prophet Muhammad, the Quran, and the Hadith, the teachings of stories about Prophet Muhammad and the teachings, constitute the public sphere, Medina, the city, the polis in Greek. Later, Muhammad in Medina developed into being a head of a state. Muhammad decided when and who war was conducted. He was both the political as well the religious and legal leader. I make here a distinction between the early Muhammad, we call him Muhammad I, and later Muhammad, Muhammad II. The first Muhammad, was a mystic in Mecca, a mystical person, who invited people to join him in the pursuit of brotherhood and justice. He asked people to worship one God and to destroy all other gods in Kaaba, Mecca. At this point in time, no meaningful political ambition can be traced in his doctrine. The people, however, don't listen. They don't abide by his rule. Everything revolves around the number 1. Salman Rushdie strangely describes this in his book, The Satanic Verses. He wrote, "This is the world in which Muhammad, bring his message. 1, 1, 1. It sounds like a dangerous word in the midst of all that plurality. Muhammad believed, La, there isn't. Ilaha, a divinity. Illah, except Allah. After the Hijrah, the migration to Medina, a different Muhammad appears, Muhammad II. This period covered the greatest part of the Quran, Hadith teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, and the Sharia Islamic law. The Prophet Muhammad II is a statesman, judge, and a warlord. Prophet Muhammad II, according to his biographer Ibn Ishaq, this is when he is giving the right to use violence just before his departure to Medina. The unbelievers could now be fought with violence. In 624, Muhammad beat the army of Mecca at the Battle of Badr. From that moment on, he is the undisputed leader of the Medina and of the Universal Society of Muslims, the Ummah. Rousseau was right, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was right. Muhammad started the war against every form of plurality, every form of plurality, duality, and trinity on the symbolic level of power and the political. In Muhammad II, the theological and the political came together. Because of this, politics, in the sense of the public sphere in which free people meet, has become an ideal, a dream to average Muslims. With Muhammad II, political Islam was born. And with that, the civil war regarding the question who should be allowed to act as the sovereign on behalf of the Prophet. The contrast between the pre-Islamic area Jahiliyyah and the Islamic area that Muhammad II instigated is so absolute that it bears great resemblance to the revolution of modern times. In the return of Muhammad to Mecca, in this victory, Rushdie sees a modern revolutionary battle against time and history. He wrote, Rushdie, "History is a diversion from the right path. Knowledge is futile, because on the day that Allah completed his revelation to Mahoun, the sum of all knowledge had been reached." And he ended, Rushdie, "of the victory of water over wine, of the beginning of the untime of Imam." Untime. Each revolution since then began with 0 time. Robespierre Revolution, Iranian Revolution, Russian Revolution, Al-Qaeda Revolution. The Prophet, in short, was the sovereign, Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. After him, the caliphs could no longer be seen as prophet, but merely as successor of the Prophet. They were given the title Amir al-Mu'minin, head of state, of prince of religious. This is why the king of Morocco, Hassan II, said in an interview with Le Monde on September 4th, 1992, he said, "The Islam forbids me to instate a constitutional monarchy according to the West European model. I can delegate certain authority to others, but I don't have the right to give up my privilege. An Islamic king cannot delegate his power." 5. Islam is not compatible with democracy. Islam is not compatible with democracy. Muslims, however, are. History isn't the result of an all-encompassing necessary process. Areas in human history start as a result of coincidence. History is as coincidental as the people in it. It is, however, correct to say that it is possible that once an area has started, events follow each other at random. Islam, as the main religion and culture of the Orient, the Islamic realm, is a coincidental phenomenon. If the Persian or the If the Persian or the Egyptians wouldn't have been bitten, the Islam would have most probably never gotten further than the Arab Peninsula. It wasn't, after all, the individual convention of the conquered people that caused the spread of the Islam. The war, military and political weakness brought about by the wars made it, the Islamic attack on Persia, including what's now Iraq, was a success. The chaos caused by the Islamic army in the conquered countries and the ruthless suppression of the resistance of their people have caused an almost permanent state of forgetfulness in the Islamic world. We must differentiate it between Muslims, Islam, and political Islam. Muslims, Islam, and political Islam. We have at this moment in Europe, for the first time in the history of mankind, 2 Muslim ministers in Netherlands, in Holland, since 10 days ago. 2 Muslim peoples. They are ministers. Minister of Immigration and Refugees, Al Bayrak. She's coming from Turkish. And Ahmad Abu Talib, Minister of Social Affairs from Morocco. I support that, and it's very, very good. I see them not as a Muslim, I see them as the Dutch citizen. Dutch citizen. They are maybe Muslim, they are maybe not, they are maybe Jewish, they are maybe Christian. It's not important for a democratic society. There are many different Muslims in the world. Muslims who drink whiskey. You know that. Those who are strong believers. We know that. Those who believe not so strong. Atheists, Democrats, Marxists, and so on. Islam and Muslims cannot be seen as one. The same just as one has to differentiate between the Vatican and Catholics. They are Catholics, they are Vatican. Muslims can live under any type of regime. Muslims decided what Islam is to them and have been doing so for centuries, just like the Vatican. Islam inherently cannot be unified with democracy. Just like the Catholic faith, the Islam can, however, be submitted by the democratic judicial order. I have time? Okay. No, 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay. 6. Modern democracy has coupled the concept of the religious state, the liberal state, is a neutral state. A liberal state doesn't define itself in ideological or religious terms. Imagine that the Constitution of the U.S. should begin with, we are Protestant. We are the best of Protestant. Then you have a civil war. Or Constitution of Holland. Then you have a civil war. No, they don't define what is the society, what is the legal order. There is room for different ideology and religious ideals. The fact that the state is neutral and impartial enables it to mediate when conflicts arise. Freedom of religion, 7, instinctively implies polytheism. That means, in the terminology of political Islam, mushrikeen. Polytheism. Freedom of religion implies the acceptance of the presence of multiple gods and their claims on truth and dignity. Bin Laden is right when he said United States of America or Europe are the area of mushrikin, the area of polytheists. A democratic society is a polytheistic society. Power in a democratic society cannot coexist, political power, with a monotheistic church service. 1 minute. I'm ready. Islamic culture is in dire need of a century of enlightenment. People need to be inspired towards critical thinking. Islamic intellectuals should not only criticize their ruler, but also their culture and religion. The Islamic world needs intellectuals like Nietzsche, Voltaire. Freedom of speech and tolerance towards the dissenting opinions are precondition for critical self-reflection. 9, the political Islam represents a new form of totalitarianism. I haven't time to... No. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
He's got a lot more where that came from, so I hope you get to it in the question and answer period, which is going to start in 1 second. Before it does, I'd like to tell you one more thing about Afshin, other than being a fascinating speaker. He's a friend of someone we all know in this room, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's got a new book out called Infidel. And as you can see, they share a lot of the same ideas.